These days, it seems as if we all know someone who suffers from a food allergy or are coping with one ourselves. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, food allergies affect almost 6% of adults and children in the United States. That's millions of allergy sufferers. So what is an allergy and what causes them? An allergy occurs when the body's immune system thinks that a substance called an allergen could be harmful and reacts to it. There are many common food allergens, such as peanuts and shellfish, and people who are allergic to these foods can have mild to life-threatening reactions. So protecting people with these types of allergies is an extremely important but also very complex job. While there is medication that can lessen the effects of an allergic reaction, as well as a vaccine recently approved by the FDA, keeping allergens out of the food supply chain is still something that needs to be addressed. As a food provider, you need to protect your customers from any potential food allergens. And you also want to avoid food recalls, which can be required for allergen-contaminated food, and can cost your company not only a lot of money, but your customers' trust as well. In this program, we'll take a close look at how you can protect people from food allergens by following FDA regulations, as well as your own sanitation and cleaning rules. We hear all the time about people having allergic reactions to certain foods. But what exactly is a food allergen, and why do some individuals react to them and others don't? A food allergen is a normally harmless substance, almost always a protein, which can cause an immediate allergic reaction in people who are sensitive to it, resulting in their immune system going into a kind of overdrive. Allergies can present themselves during childhood, and they tend to run in families, so genetics may play a role. However, scientists are uncertain why some people develop allergies while others don't. There are 9 major food allergens that are known to cause allergic reactions in people. They include milk, eggs, fish such as bass, flounder, or cod, crustacean shellfish such as crab, lobster, or shrimp, as well as plant-based foods such as tree nuts like almonds, pecans, or walnuts, wheat, peanuts, soybeans, and sesame. The first 8 foods on the list were identified in 2004 in the Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act. While more than 160 foods were known to cause allergic reactions at the time, over 90% of serious reactions were linked to these 8 foods. Sesame was added to the list in 2023. When the Food Allergy Safety, Treatment Education and Research Act, FASTER, which supersedes the Food Allergen Act, became effective. Allergic reactions to these allergens can vary in severity, from mild symptoms such as hives and lip swelling to severe life-threatening conditions such as anaphylaxis, which can result in shock and even fatal respiratory problems. Other allergic reactions can include flushed skin or a rash, a tingling or itchy sensation in the mouth, swelling of the face or tongue, and vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal cramps. Additionally, coughing or wheezing, dizziness and lightheadedness, swelling of the throat and vocal cords, difficulty breathing, and even loss of consciousness can be caused by exposure to allergens. Food allergies are sometimes confused with food intolerances, but the two are very different. As we've discussed, a food allergy affects the immune system, and even small amounts of the offending food can trigger a host of allergic symptoms. People with food intolerances cannot properly break down certain foods, rather than have an immune system reaction. It is estimated that up to 20% of the world's population may have a food intolerance. This inability to break down foods can be due to enzyme deficiencies, such as having no lactose enzymes to break down the lactose found in milk and other dairy products, or having adverse reactions to naturally occurring chemicals in foods or additives. As with food allergens, there are a number of foods that people can often have an intolerance to, including dairy products like milk, cheese, and yogurt, chocolate, eggs, particularly egg whites, flavor enhancers such as MSG, food additives such as preservatives and dyes, strawberries, citrus fruits, and tomatoes, and wine, particularly red wine. People with a food intolerance may experience nausea, abdominal pain, diarrhea, and bloating. And while they are unpleasant, the symptoms of food intolerances are usually not life-threatening. Not only is the presence of food allergens in the food supply chain a serious concern for people suffering from food allergies, it is a major issue for the food industry itself. With so much at stake, people with food allergies must be vigilant in determining what ingredients are in the foods they eat. And it can sometimes seem like foods containing the allergens they can't tolerate are everywhere. So, for the safety of people with food allergies, preventing cross-contamination between allergen and non-allergen foods and food ingredients has to start at farms and continue through food processing plants as well as grocery stores and restaurants. For food growers and processors, cross-contamination happens when an allergen protein is transferred directly to another food or a food contact surface. On a farm, there are a number of ways cross-contamination can occur, including trailers that are used for both peanut and produce harvests, eggs that are cleaned, graded, and sorted on tables where ready-to-eat produce is also processed, soy and wheat that is harvested, stored, or transported using the same farm equipment. Cross-contamination can also occur when nut trees drop nuts into fresh produce that is stored uncovered in vehicles or containers that are parked under the trees, fish and other seafood that is harvested and transported on the same truck as fresh produce, cheese and other dairy products that are improperly stored in coolers, and when food that is in community-supported agriculture subscription boxes that also contain produce and other fresh foods such as eggs. There are also a lot of other surfaces that can come into contact with an allergen during production, processing, and packaging, such as tools, equipment, packing and processing tables, even workers' hands. Fortunately, there are several things that can be done to help prevent cross-contamination in your environment. To start with, you need to know what allergens might be present in your work areas. Then you can identify the risk points where these allergens could contaminate other food. Next, you should make sure that everyone is trained to recognize allergens and where this cross-contamination could occur. And lastly, everyone must implement good handling, storage, and transport practices on the farm. Specific steps that can be taken to keep your customers safe from cross-contact include having effective cleaning and sanitizing protocols in place for equipment and food contact surfaces, providing hand washing stations in all areas, setting up separate packing, processing, and storage areas, posting signage that identifies areas where allergens may be found, designating employee break areas where personal food is stored and eaten, and separating allergens from other foods during transportation. While food ingredients may arrive at manufacturing plants separated and in clearly marked sealed containers, the facility still needs to make sure that no cross-contamination takes place during the manufacturing process. If allergens do end up in food without being listed on the ingredient label, your company could be subject to a product recall for undeclared allergens. Not only could people get sick, a recall could cost a lot of money and your customers' trust. Unfortunately, this happens so frequently that undeclared allergens were the leading cause of the Food and Drug Administration's food recalls last year and have been for the past several years. So how does the FDA recommend that you prevent cross-contamination in the manufacturing process? It starts with a facility's basic design. You may need to use airflow controls, such as a positive air pressure environment in the packaging area, or install micro-air filtration systems to prevent airborne allergen particles from getting into allergen-free zones. Allergen cross-contact can also be avoided by isolating production lines that process allergens in separate rooms or buildings, keeping specific facilities, processing and packaging lines and equipment reserved for allergen-free production, designing traffic patterns in a facility to prevent allergens from coming into contact with other foods. Other measures that the FDA requires in certain situations to prevent cross-contamination include providing partitions, covers, and catch pans to protect unpacked products, and implementing a production schedule that separates the manufacture of allergen-containing products from non-allergen-containing products. But in some cases, production lines must be shared and produce both allergen and allergen-free products. In these situations, processing allergen-containing products last can help to prevent cross-contamination. Also, separately cleaning utensils and tools that are used in the production of allergen-free foods and storing them away from other equipment can help keep finished food products allergen-free. While your facility's design is important, employees also play a crucial role in preventing allergen cross-contamination too. First, workers should change out of their hats, gloves, and other protective clothing frequently, so they don't become carriers of dust and seeds. Employee movement can also be restricted between allergen-free and allergen areas of a plant. So once an employee leaves an allergen-free area and crosses into an allergen-containing area, they aren't permitted to return to the allergen-free room. Another important set of considerations for managing allergens in the food production process is how ingredients are delivered and stored. The FDA requires that employees check the labels of incoming ingredients for accuracy, so the foods can be stored and handled properly on the production floor. The food packages must also be checked for damage or leakage, and colorful tags should be attached to allergen-containing foods so that they can be easily identified. Once the ingredients have cleared the receiving process, allergen-containing foods and non-allergen foods must be kept in different storage rooms or on different shelves in secure bins or containers. Allergen-containing foods should always be kept on lower shelves to avoid spillage or leakage onto non-allergen foods. Your food ingredients may come from a trusted source, and you can be rigorous about inspecting your shipment for allergens and damaged packaging. You can create a dedicated storage area or use low shelving for foods that contain allergens to prevent cross-contamination with non-allergen foods. But all of your safeguards won't protect your customers from food allergens if your facility isn't spotlessly clean. Without proper cleaning procedures, food allergens can get into the air as dust particles or hide in the nooks and crannies of your food processing equipment. That's why the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, recommends that facilities that manufacture and handle food create written Sanitation Standard Operating Procedures, SSOPs, for allergen management. This cleaning plan should include practices and processes which will help to ensure that your facility can prevent cross-contact. The SSOPs should call out procedures and describe monitoring which will ensure that food contact surfaces, including utensils, staff wardrobe, and equipment, are cleaned regularly. Employees overseeing the program understand the allergen hazards that exist in the facility and how to control allergen cross-contact. The SSOPs should include a list of what needs to be cleaned and how often, the specific methods, chemicals, concentrations, temperature set points, solution flow rates, and any other critical factors for each cleaning task. Requiring the use of fresh cleaning solutions when moving from one area or type of equipment to another, rather than reusing solutions. Using swabs to test rinse water for the presence of allergens. How dirty equipment awaiting cleaning should be segregated, isolated, and held. And how clean equipment and work areas will be protected from recontamination. Other cleaning precautions that the FDA requires include preventing already cleaned equipment from hose overspray when floors, walls, ceilings, or other equipment is washed down. Using vacuums equipped with filters specifically designed to capture allergenic particles when removing loose, dry residue from surfaces. And never using compressed air and grit blasting for removing food residue from any surface, so allergens aren't dispersed from one area to another. It's important that a food processor sanitation control program can be verified by analyzing samples from a number of different areas, pieces of equipment, and clothing for the presence of allergenic food residue, including handheld tools, clothes such as aprons or gloves, equipment surfaces, rinse water, and push-through materials, ingredients, and final products. The best way to make sure all of this gets done is to create a cleaning checklist. This should list all of the equipment where allergen buildup could occur or residual allergen proteins could be trapped, such as conveyor belts, fillers, mixers, silos, bulk tanks, packaging equipment, hand utensils, shovels, and scrapers, as well as protective clothing. The checklist should also specify equipment that should be swabbed both before and after cleaning to determine if any allergens are present. If allergen cross-contact is found, you should immediately take the following corrective actions. Determine the best cleaning methods to use to correct the problem. Conduct a study comparing your procedures with best manufacturing practices. Modify operating procedures as appropriate to eliminate the potential for future problems. And retrain all staff in proper food handling and contamination prevention procedures. A retraining program will need to be implemented for personnel who collect samples and perform analysis as well. And in-house testing should be periodically verified by an independent laboratory. With so much information listed on food nutritional labels, how many times have you thought there's no time to study these labels when you're at the store? But if you have a food allergy, reading these labels could be the difference between life and death. Food labels are on the front lines of helping people with food allergies and dietary restrictions avoid foods that will make them sick. Not only are manufacturers responsible for making sure the right label goes on the right package, the FDA requires that they create labels to ensure consumers know what they're eating. Everyone understands what nutrients a food contains and the specific portions of the nutrients in the food. And shoppers can avoid foods that don't agree with them or that they are allergic to. Because of the serious health problems that allergens can cause, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act also requires that the labels of most packaged foods marketed in the United States disclose, in simple-to-understand terms, when they are made with a major food allergen. To help with this, the FDA has updated food labeling requirements, so labels have larger and bolder type for important information like servings and calories. And sugars must now be listed as added sugars, along with how many grams there are and what % of the daily value this represents. But the major way that the FDA food labeling regulation protects consumers if a food contains any of the 9 major allergens is by requiring that this be listed on the label. This labeling requirement can be met if the common or usual name of an ingredient already identifies that allergen's food source name, like peanuts. Otherwise, the allergen's food source must be shown in one of 2 ways. In parentheses following the ingredient name, such as lecithin, soy, flour, wheat, or whey, milk, or in a contains statement, such as contains wheat, milk, and soy. A may contain statement can also be used on a food label, but it's important to note that contains and may contain have different meanings. For example, whey, egg yolks, and a natural flavor that contains peanut proteins must be listed as ingredients identified as milk, egg, and peanuts in a contains list. But if there is only a chance that allergens could unintentionally be present in a food, either a may contain or a manufactured, processed, or packaged in a facility where allergens are present statement can be used on the label. These statements are voluntary warnings and are not defined or regulated. And while they may not be a legal requirement, they are helpful in alerting consumers that a manufacturer uses the same equipment to make different food products, some of which contain allergens, or that allergens are present in the facility, even if the processing equipment isn't shared. For example, even after cleaning equipment, a small amount of an allergen, such as peanuts that were used to make cookies, could be present in crackers also made at the facility. In this case, people should be warned of the presence of peanuts with a may contain or manufactured, processed, or packaged statement. Not all manufacturers use these statements, but if you are looking to safeguard the public and avoid problems, including these statements is a wise thing to do. In the near future, the FDA is slated to conduct additional research and propose a standardized front-of-package labeling system. Most content labels are currently on the back of product packaging. This is a promising development, since having nutritional labels on the front of foods will help people quickly assess if the product contains allergens and how healthy foods actually are. There is obviously a lot that needs to be done to protect people with allergies from the allergens that may be in the foods that you and your company grow or process. Let's review. Food allergens are almost always a protein and are harmless to many people. But for 6% of adults and children in the United States, food allergens are a serious problem that can cause their immune systems to produce an allergic reaction. Allergic reactions can range from minor ailments like flushed skin or a rash to life-threatening anaphylaxis. There are 9 major food allergens, ranging from milk to peanuts. Allergen-containing foods must be kept separate from non-allergen foods in every part of the production and handling process. And food packages must be labeled according to FDA requirements, with all of the ingredients listed in an easy-to-understand format. As you can see, handling allergens in the food industry requires a real team approach. If everyone works together, consumers can enjoy the foods that they eat safely every day.